What's up, ladies? All right, Coach Shauna here. I am going to take you through one of my most favorite topics ever, and that is hormones. Why? Because hormones are a part of everything that we do as human beings. Without most of them, we would not be here. And getting your hormones healthy is a way to live long, build muscle, sleep well, and feel amazing. I also love having the conversation about hormones as a woman because of this. This is who we are as women. We are extremely complicated individuals. No day is ever the same for us. And I love having the conversation about, with all of this stuff happening, how can we get our nutrition and our fitness in line to make this not be so this, right? I got a cat hair, sorry. So, when you see this, you're probably like, holy cow, this is why I feel crazy half of my life. Absolutely. We have constant fluctuations every single day, right? And all of this stuff impacts all the other hormones that our body produces, like our thyroid hormones and our cortisol levels and our insulin, which I'm going to get into a little bit later on in this presentation. And I'm going to try to keep this presentation under 20 minutes. So let's see how I can do. All right, so does this make you appreciate as a woman why things are so complicated? This is also why they hate using us for a lot of science studies, because they have to take this stuff into account. If you do a pre and a post on something, on a trial, like, you have to have the woman pre and post at the same time in her hormone cycle, and one hormone cycle to the next could be completely different because she could have gotten in a car accident, she could be under eating, she could have had a really stressful training session, she could have gotten a new job, fired from a new job. All of that is going to impact this. Okay, so we're very complicated, and I'm going to show you how our nutrition can positively and negatively impact all of this. And speaking of hormones, we are also going to talk about menopause, and we're going to talk about how to manage this and why it's important to understand how this all affects things like sleep and muscle growth and energy levels and even focus and clarity, all of that, right? And we're going to talk about how we can make these symptoms. We'll talk about this in the group, and I've got some awesome handouts for you if you haven't seen them already. To help you, if you're someone who's in perimenopause, heading into menopause and post, to not have severe menopause symptoms, and what nutrition choices you can make to positively impact this transition. All right, so hormones affect every part of who we are as women, right? This is really important to understand because this is what defines us, and not defines us as a worthwhile being or as a badass or anything like this. It defines our physiology. Hormones, our estrogen, testosterone levels dictate so many parts of who we are. And like going back to the menopause thing, it also can affect how we perceive ourselves. You'll talk to women when they're going through menopause who question, like, am I losing my femininity? Because, you know, their hair gets coarser, their skin dries up, and they're like, you know, who am I if I can't make a baby? Well, of course, our ability to make a baby doesn't have to define who we are, right? We're more than that, but we also are trying to figure out who we are in the world with that as part of who we are. Very complicated. Women are complicated. And hormones affect all kinds of things. They affect your thyroid function, your digestion, your anxiety, your happiness, depression, metabolism, muscle gains. All of these things are all connected too. We are synergistic creatures. It is why it is super important when we're talking about your estrogen levels that we also recognize, what does estrogen do to insulin and cortisol? When we're talking about testosterone levels, how does that impact my norepinephrine and my adrenaline? All of it is connected. One goes up, one might go up. One goes up, one might go down, right? And so understanding that we are holistic creatures and it's all connected is super, super important, because our relationship with food directly impacts our hormone health. So understanding that it's all connected, we are complicated, and we're synergistic / holistic at the core of all of this, understanding that our food impacts our hormone health is super, super, super important. I cannot say that enough. If you do not give your body what it needs to make those hormones, then we're not as healthy as we could be. This is as basic as consuming fruits and vegetables, adequate protein, adequate fat, carbohydrates in the right amounts, and can be as complicated as, is your magnesium levels low? Are your calcium levels low? What do you need to get more of? What do you need to get less of, right? So it's super, super important to understand that eating well is not just about how much body fat I have on me. Am I giving my body what it needs to make enough estrogen and testosterone? And I'm going to get into that at the end. What are estrogen and testosterone boosting foods? How do I make sure I get enough for my body to do what it needs to do? All right. So, which segues into, are you eating enough? Why does that matter? If you do not eat enough, your body can't do what it needs to do. Why does that matter? Because if you're not giving your body what it needs to make estrogen and testosterone, well, then all of a sudden, our metabolisms aren't as fast as they could be. We're not building as much muscle as we could be, and we're not maintaining the body composition that we want to, right? And that matters. A lot of you are following in this course because you want to lean out, because you want to feel better in your skin. Well, if you're not giving your body enough of what it needs, it can't do what it's supposed to do. Recognizing that fueling our bodies, feeding our bodies, is giving it everything it needs to be the best physical version of ourselves that we can be. Not physical version like, Superwoman, but physical version of, like, who is your best self? How is she designed? Well, I got to give myself enough food to be that best self, right? Okay. Are you eating enough? What does it mean when you're not eating enough? Irregular and missing periods, irritability, chronic fatigue, difficulty sleeping, chronic injury, frequently getting sick. All of these are run by hormones. Your immune system, your recovery rate, your sleep patterns, your energy levels, your cognition, your mental state, your depression, your anxiety, your happiness, your periods, going into menopause. All hormones. If I could do another degree, if I could be two people, I would be an endocrinologist, which is a scientist or a doctor who studies hormones because of how amazing they are and because of how connected they are. So recognizing that not giving myself enough food impacts all of my different hormones is very, very important. All right. So speaking of, this should technically say hormones and carbs, because women who not only undereat but underconsume carbs are going to find that their bodies are not producing the same amounts of hormones that are women that are well fed. Why? Because from a physiological state, if our body is underfed and especially undercarbed, our body downregulates because it thinks it's in a famine. If it thinks it is in a famine, like way back in the day when there wasn't a lot of food, it doesn't make sense for us to be producing an egg to be fertilized to make a baby because there's not food around, right? So we are preset to downregulate when there's not food around so that we can't make a baby. It doesn't know there's a 7-Eleven down the street, right? It just knows that you're not giving it carbs and then you're potentially not giving it enough food. So it's going to downregulate your hormones so you can't make a baby. Hormone health is body health. If your hormones are healthy, your body is healthy. If your body is healthy, your hormones are healthy. You want to make sure that you're giving your body adequate amounts of carbohydrates so it can produce the hormones that it's supposed to produce. I beat that one. Sorry. I'll beat you over the head with that one. Eat enough. It's super, super important. All right. So now we're going to talk about for our ladies who struggle with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. The symptoms of PCOS are increased testosterone production and decreased insulin sensitivity. What this is you have cysts on your ovaries. Now, women who are overweight or obese tend to be more prone to have PCOS, but that doesn't mean that if you're overweight, you have it, and if you have it, you're overweight. You can be either one or the other, right? And you'll often find that the doctor is going to recommend going on a low carb diet. Now, if you're a woman who is a functional fitnesser, I can't use the CF term because we're not supposed to do that. If you follow high intensity exercise, I want you eating carbs. And now you're like, cool, Shauna, my doctor said I'm not supposed to eat many carbs. So how does this all work? It's the quality of carbs when you're doing fitness. So I want you giving carbs. I want you consuming carbs when you're fitnessing. And then around the rest of your life, especially if you're mostly sedentary, I want you minimizing your carb consumption. And then we eat whole food carbs, right? We have a sweet potato or a banana or an orange before a training session, or maybe we have more carbs than that, depending on how long we train. And then we have white rice or potatoes or, bread after our training session. And then the rest of the day, we watch our carb intake, because what have I talked about? It's very important to make sure that you consume an adequate amount of carbs for your activity level. And we will talk about, I'm going to go into detail about your estrogen, high estrogen foods and high testosterone foods to help you avoid the foods that can contribute to high testosterone levels and consume more foods that are contribute to high estrogen levels to help you manage this while you also get to eat carbs for your training. All right. I got 9 minutes to get all this done. Nutrition around your cycle. So this is an overview of the week. These are little details that I want to impart, but we are going to nerd out this week, ladies. We are going to talk about menopause. We're going to talk about your periods. We're going to talk about why it's important to get enough. I've got a ton of resources for you if you want to nerd out with me even more. This, again, is just an overview. Nutrition around your cycle. So we're going to talk about your 4 weeks. They're broken up into your follicular phase and your luteal phase. Your follicular phase is 2 weeks long. It starts day 1 of your period, and it goes until day 14, ovulation. If you do not get pregnant, then it starts over, right? So at day 14, you ovulate, drop an egg, and your body starts to anticipate that it could potentially become pregnant. Your uterus lining thickens in anticipation of that egg needing someplace to hang on to and that uterus expanding. And then if in 2 weeks' time we don't get pregnant, we shed the lining of our uterus and we start again. Most cycles are 28 to 30 days long. Again, it's going to vary based off so many factors, but our goal is to get you down to a 28 to 30 day cycle because that's indicative of good hormone health. What does nutrition around your cycle look like? So in the first week, your period week, you're being mindful of hydration. You're being mindful of avoiding foods, especially the first few days, that cause digestive issues, because part of the inflammation process, which is part of the shedding of your lining, your body produces prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are these little asshole hormone-like substances that are part of the inflammatory response. They get in your digestive tract and they cause digestive issues, okay? So part of the reason you have digestive issues is because proximity of your intestines to your uterus is all inflamed and your intestines are near there, and then it's like, I'm mad, and then they're like, me too, and then they're mad. Okay, and then also you have prostaglandins being processed, which also cause your intestines to be inflamed. And then if you accidentally eat trigger foods that you might are hit or miss as far as cause you digestive issues, then you can have even more issues. So we want to be mindful of the foods that are triggers. We want to maybe even eat a little bit more bland on the first few days so our body can keep those intestines healthy and feeling good, which means we can absorb more nutrients, which means we can heal faster from the uterine lining shedding. We want to be mindful of hydration because we lose 2 to 3 tablespoons of blood a day, which is a lot. We want to be mindful of iron consumption. A cool way to get in extra iron is to cook your food in a cast iron skillet. It's one of the most bioavailable, which means easily usable by your body sources of iron. So grab a cast iron skillet, I have one behind me. You can't see it because it's got eggs in it or egg remnants. But I know they're a pain to clean. They're an awesome way for us to get easily absorbed iron. And then we want to be mindful of if our body asks for something, if we are craving something, to honor that craving. It is not bad to honor cravings. If you do not avoid foods, if you do not come from a place of restriction, then we have control because we're not restricted, right? And if we're not restricted, then if my body says, hey, can I have some potato chips because I really would like some carbs and some salt because I'm not super hydrated and because I need carbs for energy, I'm like, yes, absolutely, you can have some potato chips because I haven't kept them away and I can manage how many I eat, right? So that's week 1. Honor your cravings, hydrate, avoid inflammatory foods, especially during the first few days of your cycle. Week 2, you're hydrating, listening to your cravings, and getting ready to crush your training. Why? Because that is when your hormone profile, as Dr. Stacy Sims says, is most like that of a man, meaning everything is baseline and feeling really good. Baseline for us, meaning it's not like massively spiked or massively dropped. And you have a high level of estrogen and a high level of testosterone. You recover well, you're sleeping really well, you have tons of energy, power production is up. We want to make sure that we're nourishing our body for that. This is your opportunity to go heavy, add in some extra training, and really see what you can do in the gym. And then week 3 is luteal phase, week 3 and 4. So week 3, most of the time, our athletes are not going to see a major change between the end of follicular phase and week 3 of your cycle. As the progesterone levels increase, you might notice that you actually sleep better. However, you need 200 to 300 more calories a day. And you also need to be mindful of hydration because of how progesterone interferes with our hydration cues. And you're not as insulin sensitive, which means that your body has a harder time getting the carbohydrate into the cell. So if you want to have a little bit more fat during your luteal phase to slow down the process of those or the digestion of those carbohydrates, you absolutely can. 200 to 300 more calories a day in your luteal phase is what you're going to want to eat. If you're hungry, eat. That is one of the most important things I want you to understand. We are going to teach you, if we haven't already, you are learning the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger, right? And becoming confident that you're craving food because you're actually hungry versus you think you need food because you're sad or depressed or you're PMSing, right? So we're helping you distinguish that. And then that helps you say, okay, if your body at 4 p.m. is like, I need more food, you can give it more food. And then again, going back to the potato chips, it's probably okay that you eat some potato chips, especially during your luteal phase, because progesterone interferes with where aldosterone docks in your brain, and aldosterone tells our body to hold on to sodium. And so we're losing more sodium in our urine, which you might need more salt during your luteal phase. So if you're craving it, eat it. Just don't eat the whole bag of chips. We're going to go into that this week. Okay, as I mentioned, with your PCOS, and this goes across the board for anyone trying to regulate their cycle, we want to learn what foods are positively estrogen boosting and what foods are positively testosterone boosting. Why? Because if you're dealing with PCOS, you want to consume more estrogen foods and less testosterone foods. If you're someone who's trying to get a balanced menstrual cycle, you potentially want to consume both. I, for one, because of my age, I'm 41, I'm constantly chasing foods that positively boost my testosterone because I want to build as much muscle as possible and I want to recover well. So what do you do if, like on my next slide, you see that the testosterone boosting foods and the estrogen boosting foods might be the same foods? How do you figure that out? Because you're going to Google this, I know, and there's going to be a massive list, and there are foods like bananas, which are not on here, but they are also estrogen boosting, that boost both hormones. Okay, so how do I figure out what I'm supposed to do, especially if I'm dealing with something like PCOS? You just don't eat 5 bananas because you want the estrogen boosting, right? But you don't want a ton of the testosterone. So you eat 1 banana because bananas are healthy, and they also do great things like provide tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin, which helps you sleep. So you want to eat a banana. You just don't want to eat a ton because you don't want to boost your testosterone. We're going to talk a lot about that this week in the group. All right, I almost did it. 2028. Hormone balance means you're in balance. When we get healthy menstrual cycles, when we get happy thyroid levels, when we get happy cortisol levels and happy insulin levels, then our whole body is happy. So this week we are going to crush your hormones, and we're going to have this conversation for the rest of the time we're together. And then you all are going to go out and operate as well-oiled machines. That was a lot. There's still more to talk about, but I will see you in the Facebook group, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.